Ready?
Yeah, my name's Benjamin Muziru. I'm a pastor. I'm married with my wife for 25 years. We have 6 children. We have 2 wonderful young men and 4 daughters. I've been a pastor since 1996, and that's when I began a ministry called Divine Destiny Ministries, which is in Uganda, Kampala. And right now this ministry has evolved into even another project called the Slum Children Support Project that we began in 2003, working in the slums, typical African slums in Kampala, where you can look and see the plight of humanity in some of these countries in Africa. So we've been working with this project for 11 years, and we have seen the Lord work a lot of wonderful things in the lives of these children. By the time we began that project, the Lord put it upon my heart when we went into the slums, and we could find some of these kids. They couldn't have something to eat maybe during the day, because some of them were staying with the grandparents and maybe with the single parents who go out to work in the markets to try to look for a way of living. They leave early in the morning, maybe at around 5 in the morning. They leave the kids in the house, then they go out looking for something to do, and they come back later, maybe in the evening at around 8 or 7:30, leaving these kids by themselves to fend for themselves. And this moved the kids to move to fend for themselves around, and they could pick food on the garbage pits, and they could go out loitering in the neighborhood trying to get something to eat. But what we realized that after we began this church in Kibuli, that is 1996, we realized that these kids were the ones who had begun going to the streets, doing pickpocketing, and so it was also a problem. So the Lord put it upon my heart that we can do something in the life of these kids, though we didn't have much, by the way, but the Lord just put it upon my heart, and I began sharing with the church in 2002 that we need to do something for these children. But as I was sharing, in reality, members of the church were saying we cannot do this because we ourselves cannot even take our kids to school. Some of us were also struggling. Then how can we be able to cater for the kids? But out of obedience, I took a step of faith and I said, okay, let's do something. So the project began in January 2003, and we began getting these kids, thinking what to do. One of the things that I realized that these kids had a lot of time by themselves. They could loiter around. They didn't know how to steam off the energy they had. So at times they had begun fighting, making small gangs, and doing every kind of things. So the first thing was to keep them occupied. And in Africa and in Uganda in particular, one of the games that children love, the sport they love so much, is soccer. So I got this idea that we can buy a ball for them. So bought a ball for them so that they could go to the pitch and they could play and they could feel like other children, because some other children who came from well-to-do families had toys, had these things to play with, but for them, poor out there, because when we are talking about the slums, we are talking about a place where you can find one room which is about 8 feet by 6 feet, and you can find there the father, the mother, and then maybe you find 6 kids who are staying there, and in the surroundings there are no amenities, no toilets, no whatever. The water is running everywhere, garbage is everywhere. So this is the kind of situation I'm talking of. So they couldn't have toys to play with. So for them having a ball to play, it was a miracle. So we began getting them. But what we did was to see that they cannot just come and play, because if at all they can go out looking for something to eat, we can do something. So we began with giving them porridge at least every Saturday in the evening. We give them the ball, they go to the field. After they have come from there, then we give them something to eat, to drink, to eat porridge, and then they could go back. But God is so gracious that 4 months down the road, we got some few friends who came and they say, "What are you doing?" We said, "We're doing this with the kids in the slums." They said, "Okay, for us, our approach to children's issues is about sports." And this was Sports Outreach Ministries, which is in Uganda. So they came and they said, "We can offer some coaches who can help these kids, who can offer balls, we can give them uniforms to put on and they play." So it was another big thing. So these kids now, they didn't have one ball, they had many balls. So we got the number began growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger, but it was for our relief. And then later on, these very people, some of them who came in looking around what we are doing, they said, "What do you do with these kids apart from sports?" We said that we can give them some porridge at least once a week. They said, "No, do you mind if we partner with you and we can give you something more to add on?" So few people began coming in, giving us some more porridge and some sugar. So we increased our feeding program from 1 day at least to 3 days. They could get on Monday, Wednesday and Saturday. Then they could have at least 3 porridge meals. Then we graduated from that level until right now we are feeding them 7 days a week, whereby they have at least 1 meal a day, that is Monday to Sunday, and they are assured of something. So that's how we began. But God is so gracious that even as we began moving on this journey, we said that these kids need to learn to be responsible for their communities. So we had another approach that every last Saturday of the month, these kids had to go back to their communities to work, which we call community work. We go with them, they clear the garbages, the water trenches, so that they can know how to look for their environment. It was a big shock to the community, because some of these kids had already begun being seen as a problem in the community, but they were amazed to see these kids cleaning their environment. It was another eye-opener. They began to appreciate what we are doing, and they began sending in more of their kids to because they are seeing change. Kids began doing work at home, and it was so amazing. And apart from that, we had also to look into their spiritual lives, because like some of them were coming from families where God was nothing to the family. So we said, no, we cannot just give them something to eat and also to play, but we need them to be godly, because that is what can nurture their character, their behavior. So we began discipling them and telling them about God, telling them about being good citizens, how to relate with others. And I remember the first time when they came to church, it was like a hell, because they entered the room, everybody was fighting, the other one was kicking the other one, and you could not even know how you were going to control them. But we were patient with them. But when we began speaking to them, these young children began to be transformed. Their lives began to be transformed. Even at home, parents and the people in the community began to see transformation, these children being changed. And they began calling in their friends, "Come, we go to this place. We can play, we can eat, we can hear wonderful words." Because one of the problems that we are having right now, not only in Uganda, but I think worldwide, many children are not parented. So what we did was also to take that level, that however these children, they stay in their communities and their families, but we can add value to their lives. We can parent them, we can tell them what is right to be done, what is wrong. So we began parenting them. And you cannot believe that right now, 11 years down the road, some of these young boys and girls who are like that, they are responsible young men and women in their communities, in their churches. Some of them, they are ministers in their churches, which is so amazing. But even during that time when we were taking them through that journey, we also began to think about their education. We didn't have much, though in this nation of Uganda, the government has what we call universal primary education. But you find that the parents think that this is the government business. Though the schools are there, they cannot pay for the scholastic materials like books and whatever. So what we did was to see how can we help these kids who are not in schools, how can they go back to school. So we began negotiating with the schools around and asking them, can you take these kids, because some of them had overgrown their classes. Some of them would have been maybe in high school, but they were supposed to begin classes. They didn't know how to write. Some of them knew how to write, but they had stopped somewhere. So we began getting some of these kids back to school. Right now, we have at least 3 of them. They have graduated from university who had dropped out of school, and some of them are working. So that's how the journey has been going on. But right now, since last year, the Lord began speaking on putting this on my heart so strongly, because I began looking at some of these young guys who came in and they were maybe 12 years and now 23 years. Some of them are working, some of them are not working, some of them they are back to school because they have got some few sponsors here and there. But the issue or the question was, after here, where are they going? Because yes, we have helped them as children, because in Uganda, when the child attains the age of 18, it becomes an adult, and they cannot fit in the children's kind of setting. So the issue is, what can be done for these children? It is so amazing that our population in Uganda, according to the UN household survey that was done in 2012-2013, 60% of our population is below the age of 18. So we have a very young population. And not only that, but the World Bank report, which is just recent, shows that right now we have a workforce of young people, which is about 7.5 million people. But of those, 62%, that is 4.5 million, are jobless. They don't have jobs. So they are looking for what to do. They are roaming about. Yet at the same time, right now in Uganda, we have over 30 universities, leave alone the other tertiary institutions. And the survey shows that every year we have new people, young people who are technically equipped to get jobs. 400,000 every year come into the job market, and the job market has no jobs for them. There are no jobs. So the issue what we are looking at right now is that unless we enhance the capacity of these young men, we can lead to an economic boom. If at all we don't enhance, if at all we don't empower them to be economically viable, we are headed for a social unrest. This has happened in different countries. It happened in Tunisia, where one young man just set himself ablaze and he burnt to ashes because he said, I see no hope in living. And what happened was a political unrest, a social unrest, and a lot of things happened. And it is not the answer, because one of the things that we need to know, there is no factory that can manufacture jobs. Jobs are just created. So what we are looking at right now, we are looking how can we empower these young men and women to be productive, to be job creators instead of being job seekers. At times we make it political and we look at the government, but also the government is overwhelmed, because when you look at the population growth of Uganda, it is so high, because the average rate of production in Uganda, it is over 7 point something per person. So our population growth is so high, and the government cannot match the way the population growth is with the economic growth. So what we need to do is to see how can we empower these young men and women to be able to be self-sustaining. Right now, we are dreaming and we are believing to begin a project called Youth Empowerment and Development Initiative, whereby we need to see that we set up at least a center where these children can go, these young guys can go, they can be empowered in life skills, yeah, in entrepreneurship, how to save and how to invest their monies, so that they can also be parented. Some of them for sure they are not parented. One time I had a time with them, and we were brainstorming on the challenges of the youth in Uganda, and they told me that we are not parented. Our parents are nowhere. We just have to find a way how we can live, to know what we are supposed to do. They need to be parented, and most of them are coming from dysfunctional families, family breakdown, where they need to be taught about the good family and the marital values. So we are looking forward to begin this project this very year. Obviously we have to involve the youth themselves. We want them to be involved, to draw the plan with them. What do they have in mind? How do they see the future? What can we do with them? We cannot think for them, they can think, but we can synergize our potential. We can put together our ideas to see how they can be helped, such that after being from the youth project, the children project, and now they are youth, they can be groomed into potential citizens, people who can be self-sustaining, people who can be able even to raise their own children in the better way, more than even how they were raised up. Because right now there's a lot of social changes and structural changes in the city. When we talk about the city itself, slum areas are being demolished right now, and some of these children, they don't know even where to go. Some of them, they don't know even where their villages, where they came from, and some of them, they don't want to go back there, but they can be empowered. Because one of the things that we have in Uganda's population, most of the people are coming from the rural areas, though they come to the cities. And when you look at the jobs, the informal sector, when we are talking about the informal sector, we are looking at those areas like agriculture, small and medium and medium enterprises. They employ over 80% of the people are employed right now. The civil service and this government and the structured jobs, they can only take in 20%. So what are we looking at? We are looking at how can we empower these people to be productive in the informal sector, and mostly going back to the agriculture area. Because in agriculture, Uganda is so blessed with a wonderful climate and wonderful soils and a wonderful food market. Why? Because Uganda is like a nucleus, is surrounded by southern Sudan, which is the youngest nation in the whole world, but they have no land. They are buying food from Uganda. We have people from Congo buying food from Uganda. People from northern Tanzania, they buy food from Uganda. Even in Kenya itself, they get most of their food, some of their food from Uganda. So Uganda has potential for food production. So we are looking at how can we empower these young men to refocus in going back to the fields, in farming, poultry, agriculture, food production, because the food market is it cannot be sustained right now, because many people are running from the rural areas and we have few commercial farmers. But these young men can be empowered into intensive farming, where they can be able to use one acre of land and they can get millions of money, so that they don't be lured into other things. We can take them into bad habits, because right now we have a high rise of substance abuse, alcoholism, drug addiction, because people are frustrated. They don't know what to do, they don't know where to go, and they say, okay, I think I can bury my worries and anxieties in drinking. And apart from that, we have a lot of vices, because of the unrest in different countries. Some of them were recruited into terrorism because they are promised a lot of monies, and they say, I think I'd rather go there and get something to eat, maybe I'll be able to survive. So how can we do that? Because as I said earlier, unless we enhance the potential and the ability of these young people, we are ending for a social unrest in one time, after a certain season. But if at all we enhance their potential, we are heading for an economic boom. So that is my message to the people around there. We have work to do. We can empower these young men and they can be productive, and we can see a better future for our country, for God and my country. That is the motto of Uganda. May God bless you.